Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I am your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. All right, we are back at it. You know, I feel a little tired today. I woke up a little bit late, but somehow I managed to pull it all together this morning, but that's okay. So anyway, I think part of it is I'm trying to get away from caffeine. I know. People are like, wait, what? Why would you do that? It just doesn't work well for me. Not even in small amounts. So I'm trying to get away from that. Anyway, we are talking about domestic terrorism and authoritarianism today. Now, it might seem kind of weird, but I have been harping on this for a long time. The right, if you will, has been putting policies into place that I disagree with. And this is not new. I've been complaining about this in some of my bill reviews, like here in Florida. And I was like, look, if you go back some of my episodes, you'll see that I started calling Florida a police state just because of the way that they're treating law enforcement. And we're starting to see that now out of the White House. Okay, so what are we talking about? I'm going to tie this in to the shooting yesterday and kind of put this, hopefully I can piece this all together. Hopefully the order that we've got this all will make sense. Okay, so you know that yesterday, where'd my story go? Here it is. Yesterday there was the shooting over at the ICE facility in Dallas, Texas. One detainee is dead. 2 others were injured. Okay, so I'm going to read this to you from CNN. This is going to kind of be the basis for the conversation today. So it says, on any given day, people detained by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement are processed at the agency's field office in Dallas, a rectangular brick building tucked between a busy highway, several law offices, and luxury apartment complex. On Wednesday morning, the unassuming building became the center of national attention when a sniper fired indiscriminately at the ICE facility from the roof of another building, leaving 1 detainee dead and 2 others seriously injured, according to the Department of Homeland Security. Okay, so I know you may not, if you're in my audience and you're more right-leaning, you may not trust CNN, but they are getting this information from the Department of Homeland Security. And at some point, we got to believe somebody. Okay? So, sniper fired indiscriminately. Okay? Gunshots slicing through the air from above sent visitors running for cover or peering out of their cars to investigate, some of them worried for family members inside the facility. Investigators are now examining writings left on a bullet casing and working to determine a motive behind the shooting, which Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem told CNN appears to have been carried out by, quote, someone who is very much against our ICE officers and the work they are doing. It was at least the fourth instance of violence or a threat at an ICE or Customs and Border Protection facility in Texas this year. Here's what we know about the suspect, the victims, and the investigation. The shooter believed to be responsible for the incident was identified as Joshua John, I think, according to 3 sources familiar with the case. He was 29. Neither local nor federal officials have formally identified the gunman. Okay, so we're pretty confident, but it's not 100% yet. Authorities have said the shooter was found dead at the scene. It's awful convenient. And died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. John had lived in Dallas suburb, was charged a decade ago with delivering marijuana, according to court records. That's going to rile the write-up because, they've been all like, oh, my God, weed, it smells so bad. And then you've got a bunch of them now coming out and they're like, look how bad this is for your health. It's causing psychosis, and it'll cause you all kind of heart problems and this and that. And perhaps if you smoke too much, it might. I don't know. But we talked about that in my episode where I'm like, you guys are running with information. This is part of my problem with the right, and I'm going to demonstrate this to you. But they are running with information and then trying to make policy on it, which is weird because from a libertarian standpoint, that doesn't sound much different than when the Democrats are in power. They run with information and then try to pass laws too. This is why I'm a libertarian, because I'm like, oh my God, the left and the right hand, they're basically one and the same. Anyway, beside the point. In 2016, when he was 19, John was charged with delivering more than 1/4 of an ounce of marijuana, according to Collin County court records. He pleaded guilty, and the case against him was deferred, with John being placed on probation. Okay, so I don't really care about that because I don't think that selling a 1/4 of an ounce of marijuana has anything to do with him shooting at an ICE agent or an ICE vehicle, because he shot at a vehicle. The charge is classified in Texas law as a state jail felony. Okay, we're going to skip past that because I don't really care. Let's see. Had a minimum wage job. Blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to skip past the inconsequential stuff. Let's see here. John voted in the Democratic primary in March 2020 and hasn't voted since then, according to records provided to CNN by the Collin County Elections Department. Voters in Texas don't declare a political party when registering to vote, but choose a party's ballot when voting in the primaries. Okay. So that's all the evidence you need, of course, that he was totally entrenched in left-wing politics, at least if you listen to the people on the right. Who are the victims? This kind of should be the important part. The 3 people shot while detained at the Dallas field office had been arrested and were awaiting transfer to a longer-term facility, ICE Deputy Director Madison Sheehan told Fox News. DHS said they were shot while in a van in the Sally Port, a fortified exit commonly found in prisons and on military bases. Authorities have not named the victims. They were in the country illegally, Sheehan said. Okay, so you'll notice that a lot of the conversation is not about the actual victims. It's about ICE agents. That's all the right wants to talk about. They're like, oh, this attack on law enforcement. It's like, well, what about the victims? I mean, we just went through this with Jimmy Kimmel, right? The right got really angry because Jimmy Kimmel made kind of a side comment about the right desperately trying to pin this on the other team, which they were doing because both sides were doing it, right? Charlie's blood was not even dried before people were leaping to say who the killer was. They didn't even have the person in custody. And then when they did, they had the first person in custody. Everybody was like, oh, it's a boomer. It's because of blah, 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 blah. Right? And both sides were guilty. Let's not pretend. Let's have an honest conversation. Both sides were equally guilty. Okay? And now they're basically doing it again. They're like, oh, hey, is he right? Is he left? Look, he voted in the Democratic primary this once upon a time. Oh my God, we found some bullets that said anti-ICE on them. I'm gonna show you that in a minute, right? Like, they're talking about everything but the victims. So Jimmy Kimmel gets in trouble because the main point of his couple minutes that got him in trouble was about Donald Trump when he was asked, how are you holding up in light of your friend's death? Your friend's death. And he's like, yeah, I'm doing pretty well. Check out these buildings over here. And so Jimmy Kimmel was mocking the president, which is exactly what we should be doing in this country. And it doesn't matter which president it is. It doesn't matter how good they're doing. They should always be subject to ridicule. That's practically, that's as American pie, so to speak. We should always, but the right, they honed in on this smaller subpoint. And here today, they're honing in on the ICE agents, even though not a single one were even shot. Can't be bothered to talk about the people that got shot, can they? Probably because they were immigrants. If they had been a white person, oh boy. I got in trouble a while back because I said that I said the Charlotte killing. I said the big reason that people are talking about it is because she was white and pretty, and I got some people mad at me over that. And the person that was mad at me was white. Just saying. Now, I don't really like getting into these racial conversations. I don't like pinning things on race so much, but there are times when an observation is. I mean, it's an observation. And so I think that part of this is that they were immigrants. So this is a great time to focus on the police, right? As opposed to the actual victims, which is weird because we're literally coming off the heels of getting mad about disrespecting a victim that was shot. Okay? So the right's not really being all that consistent right now. We're going to talk about it more. All right, let's continue on. One of the injured detainees is a Mexican national, according to a statement from Mexico's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The ministry said the head of its North American unit expressed concern for the wounded Mexican national and requested clarification of the shooting's events and unrestricted access to the person. The statement reads, while DHS called the shooting an attack on law enforcement, on ICE law enforcement, none of the people shot were members of law enforcement, FBI Dallas Special Agent in Charge Joe Rothrock noted during a news conference Wednesday. Have authorities revealed a motive? A motive for the shooting has not been identified. I'm going to repeat that really quickly so that we're on the same page here. A motive for the shooting has not been identified. Though FBI Director Kash Patel said, quote, an initial review of the evidence shows an ideological motive behind this attack, end quote. What was that? The FBI director shared a photo of shell casings he said were found at the scene, including one with anti-ICE written on it with blue ink. So, what's that image look like? It looks like, where did it go? There it is. It looks like this. There it is. Anti-ICE. On some bullets. On the casing of it. That's their evidence of the ideological bent. That's what I'm supposed to believe. Now, I want you to remember, this is the same FBI director that just weeks ago was getting raked over the coals over the whole Epstein files. What do the Epstein files have to do with this? Nothing really. Okay? Other than that same source couldn't seem to be trusted just weeks ago to give us the correct information on this particular case. Remember that, people on the right? Or did you somehow forget? He's also the same director that seems to have fumbled the investigation into Charlie Kirk's death. They got things wrong, and they couldn't find information. Like, they're consistently making mistakes. But all of a sudden, you show me one picture, and if you were to look at the whole picture, I kind of zoomed in so you could read it on the screen. But if I were to zoom out and show you the whole picture, it's nothing more than what you're looking at right now. Some bullets laying on the pavement, and it appears to have been raining. That's all there is. Like, if the pan back version just shows more concrete. That's it. That's the evidence that it's ideological. Not writings, not social media posts from the killer, not maybe what they were wearing, not maybe some videos that they posted. Nothing. Just that. And one time he voted in the Democratic primary. The bar for evidence, I swear, is just getting lower and lower. And when I say evidence, I mean things that are supposed to convince the public of something, not evidence, like a little piece here, a little piece here, a little piece there, and then eventually you gain a bigger picture. Okay? This is evidence, but it's just very limited evidence. And to be honest with you, I don't know who wrote that on there. I don't know that this guy wrote it. How do I know that they didn't find these and one of the agents wrote anti-ICE on there? I don't. And you can't prove that it didn't happen. That doesn't mean it did. That just means we need more evidence before we start coming to any conclusions. So let's go to the, let me go back to this article here and continue reading. Let's see. Noam told CNN the alleged shooter was not trying to target a specific area of the facility. We know that there were bullet holes all over the building. It wasn't just targeted at one specific area through a window, Noam said, adding that the alleged shooter was very much focused on hitting anyone that he could inside and making sure that they were victims of this attack. Okay. So this is supposed to be an attack on law enforcement, or is it just why would it be wildly shooting? Most of the people on the left that are objecting to the ICE's actions right now, most of those people are sympathizing with immigrants. So why is it all of a sudden that we have somebody that's indiscriminately just shooting all over the place and doesn't seem to care if they hit an ICE agent or an immigrant? That doesn't sound like your typical left-leaning person to me. Okay? I can't show it on the screen just because it's coming from Twitter, but Jimmy points out the latest in the Dallas shooter's ideology looks more like 4chan than Antifa. Kind of agree. Have you seen Antifa so far attack immigrants? No, you haven't. It's not to say they won't. I don't think they would. I can't guarantee it. But so far, Antifa has attacked very specific targets when they do. And it's not immigrants. So pardon me if I'm already a little skeptical about this narrative that, oh my God, it's open season on ICE agents. Pardon me if I'm skeptical, because I'm looking at the evidence, and to be quite frank with you, the evidence that's put forward so far that I'm supposed to take at face value and believe means like this person was a diehard leftist and, people like Jimmy Kimmel are motivating him, which we're going to get into. That evidence is shit. It's garbage. It's not enough. It may, in totality, be useful once they provide like a body of evidence, but alone, it's not good enough. We need to raise the bar for evidence. And it's weird because like I'm not just picking on the right. I've picked on the left over this too. And I've picked on my own peers in the Libertarian Party for doing the same thing. I'm like, guys, You wouldn't want to be found guilty on this quality of evidence. Raise your standards. Let's see. Ben says, none of it checks out. It sounds like a right-winger that needed a cover-up story. Perhaps. I don't see any evidence for that either, but perhaps. Let's continue reading. Rothrock said the shooting is being probed as an act of targeted violence. Okay. Okay. Let me just read this again. Just see if I'm crazy, guys. Just see if I'm crazy. Noam told CNN the alleged shooter was not trying to target a specific area of the facility. Rothrock said the shooting is being probed as an act of targeted violence. Was he just firing indiscriminately? Or was he targeting somebody or something? I get it. It was an ICE facility. Okay? But again, we go back to the people that are opposing ICE are generally being sympathetic to the immigrants. They're not just shooting indiscriminately. Like that's like they're not, or sorry, let me rephrase that. They're not just attacking indiscriminately. Like this isn't adding up. There's something that's missing here. Evidence, for one, and then why these things seem contradictory. Continues on. Let's see here. The violence is the result of the radical left Democrats constantly demonizing law enforcement, calling for ICE to be demolished and comparing ICE officers to Nazis, Trump wrote on Truth Social. Oh, okay. That kind of talk has been happening forever. Like, he's like, oh, you're comparing ICE officers to Nazis? Bro, where have you been? Seriously. People have been comparing anyone and everyone to Nazis for like, I don't know, ever since we defeated the Nazis. It's literally got its own, like, what's the Nazi? There's like a rule. It's like you can't go more than so long without referencing Nazis. Like this has long been a thing. This is not new. He's acting like as if all of a sudden the left is now calling people Nazis out of nowhere. That's never happened before, and now people are like, "Wow, there's Nazis. I better go get them." No, this has been happening. I can tell you just off the cuff. Remember Punch a Nazi, which I was opposed to, by the way. That was like in what, 2017, and a lot of people were justifying the idea of punching a Nazi, and I'm like, no, you don't get to just punch a Nazi because somebody's a Nazi or because you say they're a Nazi. Okay. Now, in that case, yes, the rhetoric was violence. Like if you're advocating for people to assault somebody else based on a label that may or may not even be accurate, but regardless of whether it's accurate, the fact that you're advocating violence against somebody, yes, that would be demonizing and calling for violence. But the fact of the matter is, people have been called Nazis forever. I've been called a Nazi by people. They're retarded, but I have been called one. Okay? I did an episode on the Jubilee guy who, it became popular on the right to just say, some of them to say, okay, I'm going to take pride in the label that you're calling me a Nazi. And they were doing it not because they believed that they were Nazis so much as they were just like, look, if you're going to call me one, fine, whatever, let's move on. I'm a Nazi, whatever, right? And there were people on the right who took pride in this. Again, not because they believed they were Nazis, not because they necessarily believed in Nazi things, but because they got so tired of the label, they just said, F it. Fine, I'm a Nazi. Whatever. Right? So, like, now he's complaining about it. Why? Because it's convenient. That's why. Vice President J.D. Vance also claimed, without evidence, that the attack was politically motivated. Where does the investigation? I got some video of that. Where does the investigation stand? Several law enforcement officers were seen standing on a roof building, on the roof of a building neighboring the Dallas field office. Aerial video captured by CNN affiliate on Wednesday shows. The video later pans to show an aerial view of the ICE facility. CNN team later recorded video of authorities searching a Toyota at an office building near the field office. The team witnessed a heavy law enforcement presence at the building. Okay, well, I don't care about that. let's see, blah, 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 blah. Let's see, where's the, okay, who's detained? Okay, so they're just telling you general information, like, oh, we were looking and investigating for some things, and there's a lot of detainees there. Okay, so I'm looking to see if there's anything relevant to this particular story here. No. Okay, so that's the information that we have. There was a shooting. We got some bullets, and now people are just sure that it's somebody on the right. I'm sorry, the left. They're just sure somebody on the, and that part I don't necessarily dispute. He might be left leaning. I mean, if he voted in the Democratic primary once, he might be a left leaning individual. Okay, but the bigger question is, are people like Jimmy Kimmel at fault? Are people like Gavin Newsom at fault? Or like Gavin Newsom has been Gavin Newsom for like decades. He's been in office for quite a while now. At some level, he was mayor at one point. Now he's governor, right? So he's not a new politician. And again, we've been calling people Nazis left and right in both ways that you might think of that for decades. It's not new. Okay? So let's hear what J.D. Vance actually had to say. Let's see. Let me go to my video here. We'll go to this one. Right? Is that the one I want? Yes. So here's where he's condemning the violence.
Let me just leave you with one final thought here. Look, I was asked earlier today by a reporter I actually like, but a reporter who said, well, don't both sides have crazy people? And of course, obviously, country of 330 million people, of course, both sides have crazy people. But if you look at the political violence in our country over the last couple of months, the last couple of years, it is not a both sides problem. It is primarily on one side of the political aisle. So if we are going to truly go after the political violence in this country, we need the Democratic leadership of Washington, D.C. to look in the mirror. We need them to renounce all political violence. When a poor kid like Charlie Kirk is gunned down in cold blood, we need them to start with condemning the violence instead of condemning something that Charlie Kirk said that they disagreed with.
Okay, so here's my problem with that. Number one, I'm not going to try to get into, does the right have more political violence, does the left? Because a lot of that comes down to how you're defining things and how well the evidence is for an individual that they were A, on a particular team, right or left, and then B, how much of that ideology influenced them versus something else. Were they crazy? Was it more mainstream, left or right? You know, or was it the more radical stuff? Right? Like there's so much to get into there. I don't really care about that. And you might think, well, that's important. Sure. I'm just going to go with it at face value and say, okay, as of present, we'll go with there's more coming from people who are left-leaning. I'm okay with that because I still have problems with what he said. Because he is saying, well, we need the Democratic leadership to do all these things. Basically, what he's doing is exactly what the right bitched about the left doing a long time ago. Whenever the left was in power, Democrats, the left, whatever, however you want to define it, whenever they were in power or whenever they had the upper hand, what did they do to people on the right who they viewed as having made a transgression? They were like, you need to do this. You need to condemn this. You need. It was this long list of demands. This is just more of the same of one side trying to force the other side into submission. You want a good example? I'll give you one from within the Libertarian Party back in 2017. Now, we don't really like to think of ourselves as right and left, but there's kind of more, you have individuals that are more sympathetic to left-leaning ideas, and you have individuals who are more sympathetic to right-leaning ideas. That doesn't necessarily make us a smaller, necessarily left or right, but to make it simple, we'll go with left or right. 2017, you had the incident in Charlottesville. Remember that? The person drove through the crowd, and there was all this violence, and you had all the actual real Nazis, people that self-identified as Nazis. Within our own party, the current chair at the time, Nicholas Sarwark, I don't know if he was the one that created it, but he promoted this idea of everybody needs to sign this document, and you're going to denounce the violence. And if you didn't do that, then you were automatically assumed to have in some way either supported it or at least don't care about it. But more often than not, what they tried to do was say, well, if you don't sign it, if you don't do these things and submit and denounce it, then you're one of them. That was part of the conversation in our own party. That's exactly what J.D. Vance is doing now. He's basically saying you're either with us or you're against us. The problem that I have is that I'm not so convinced that the mainstream Democratic conversation is nearly as responsible for these kind of attacks. I'm not so convinced of that. We're going to get there. But here's what else he said, and I believe it's from that same it's from that same speech that he gave, but it's actually a little bit earlier.
Because here's what happened. Because here's what happens when Democrats like Gavin Newsom did say that these people are part of an authoritarian government. When the left-wing media lies about what they're doing, when they lie about who they're arresting, when they lie about the actual job of law enforcement, what they're doing is encouraging crazy people to go and commit violence.
Okay. No. That's not an encouragement because you haven't presented any evidence for that. And I criticized somebody on social media last night because they were coming at me. And I said, look, if you go back through some of the most recent killings, so if you go back to like the church killing, the Ascension, I think it was, or Assumption, one of the two. But the Catholic church shooting, there was no evidence that pointed toward Democratic leadership or Democratic talking heads. If you look at the shooter of the Christian school, Audrey Hale, again, no evidence that she was being motivated by Democratic leadership or Democratic leaning talking heads. And I'm talking about the mainstream stuff. You don't see that. It's not in her writings. They released her, I don't know if you would call it a manifesto, but they released like 100 some pages that she had written. And nobody was like, oh my God, look at her. She's talking about Jimmy Kimmel and how inspired she is by him or anybody of that similar nature. You don't see that over and over and over. Go look. Every one of them have their reason. The guy that killed Charlie Kirk, no evidence that he was in any way motivated by mainstream talking points to kill somebody. But if you listen to him, he said that he wanted to do it because he thought that what Charlie Kirk was saying was dangerous. In his own words, he blamed Charlie Kirk. Now, look, before the right comes at me, I don't think in any way, shape, or form what Charlie Kirk said or how he engaged with people could ever be reasonably interpreted as, I need to commit violence against this guy. In fact, I think quite the opposite. I think when I watch the videos, you might disagree with him even strongly on some of his views, but the way that he engaged is exactly the way that we should expect. And here's the interesting thing. Bill Maher, I don't have the clip. I should have grabbed it. But there's a clip of Bill Maher where he is kind of coming out against this shooting of Charlie Kirk. And somebody was like, well, you can't say these words and expect that somebody's not going to take it and go to violence. And Bill Maher was like, no, absolutely not. I can expect that. People have conversations and disagree every day, all day long, since the beginning of time. No, we can absolutely expect, I'm totally butchering his words, but this is basically what he said. We can absolutely expect that people aren't killed over their political rhetoric. That is an absolutely reasonable expectation for us. So I think J.D. Vance is totally wrong here in blaming the Democratic leadership. And look, let me tell you, our friend Jimmy is in the chat here. He will tell you, I am not necessarily a friend to the Democrats. I have proved that here locally. I pissed half the party off. I did. Okay, we're not going to get into the details. But, I pissed them off. I got blocked by their chair, blocked by their party. Okay, so I am not a friend to the Democrats. I just happen to like, I don't know, the truth. I like to look at things and say, what is actually the case here? What is not? Because as I've said before, if we do not get to the absolute truth, whatever we do will not resolve whatever issue we're trying to take care of. That is a big deal to me. You cannot, think of it in terms of like a medical diagnosis, right? You cannot get the right treatment if the doctor gives you the wrong diagnosis. And I think right now, the right is getting the wrong diagnosis. And I think their treatment, if you will, is going to be incorrect and not solve the problem, perhaps make it worse. Let's continue listening.
You don't have to agree with my immigration policies. You don't have to agree with Donald Trump's immigration policies. But if your political rhetoric encourages violence against our law enforcement, you can go straight to hell, and you have no place in the political conversation of the United States of America.
Okay, so let me just tell the Vice President of the United States, fuck you. I will say what I want. And your threat to come at me and anybody else and say, well, you don't have to agree with us, but if we can blame you, we sure as hell will. That's what he's telling you. He's saying if we can blame you, because he's blaming the mainstream Democrats for this. But I don't think it's like, are they sympathetic? Or is there a conversation to be had? Yeah, I think there is, right? But I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, these shooters, they're being motivated by Gavin Newsom. Okay, he's been in office. Why haven't people been motivated, up until just now? Conveniently, when the right has the dominance politically and socially. Isn't that convenient? So no, I will speak and I will say whatever I feel, when I feel, and I will reject this idea that you can just be like, oh, somebody was motivated by DL or by somebody else, some Democratic person, some talking head. And that's what's going on right now. And I have a big problem with that because right now it sounds good to the right because they're beating up on the left, but they're not going to like it when that comes back full force even more on them. Because the left, the Democrats, will be back into power someday. And when they do, the right now is setting a precedent. Rather than saying, hey, this has been happening, from some people, and we're going to stop it. No, they're just engaging in it. I complained about the cancel culture that they're engaging in. So let's take a look at some comments here. I'm sorry, not comments, but some social media comments that are relevant to this conversation. So here you've got J.D. Vance. He tweeted out. He said, the obsessive attack on law enforcement, particularly ICE, must stop. Now, I don't disagree with that part. You should not be attacking law enforcement, period. Unequivocally, unambiguously, I am telling you, do not, for any reason, attack law enforcement, period. So if anybody tries to twist my words, we have it very clearly stated. He says, I'm praying for everyone hurt in this attack and for their families. And then he's quote tweeting Secretary Noem, who said there was a shooting this morning at the Dallas ICE Gov detention facility. Details are still emerging, but we can confirm there were multiple injuries and fatalities. Okay? So the details were still emerging, but the vice president, he's cool with just, saying, yep, this is an attack on law enforcement, as opposed to something else. Okay? So then we go on. He gets criticized by someone named John Favreau, who said the vice president is not a reliable source of information. This is now the 5th or 6th time he's posted a political take contradicted by facts from his own law enforcement agencies. So then J.D. Vance quotes him and says, the gunman had ICE, anti-ICE messaging carved. Okay, it wasn't carved. It was written in blue ink. That's a minor detail, but like that just goes to show the sloppiness that he's coming to you with. Carved on the bullets he used. What precisely did I get wrong, dipshit? Okay? Now, a lot of people are getting bent out of shape that he's, that he called somebody a nasty name. It's Twitter. I don't really care. And the person that he's attacking, is not some small account like me, But more importantly, if you're on Twitter, it's just a rough place. It is what it is. Of the things that I'm going to worry about that J.D. Vance says, calling somebody a mean name, I don't care about. So then, Midas Touch, of all places, Okay, this is a Democratic media outlet. Like they help produce a lot of media for the Democratic Party for left-leaning causes, but they're mainstream, and mainstream is important. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Based on what we know now, the people who were killed were detainees, not ICE. Maybe wait a beat before trying to capitalize on every tragedy. You are the vice president of the United States, not a random shit poster. Now, look, I'm not a big fan of Midas Touch. I disagree with him on a lot of things. I've disagreed with Politics Girl, who is through Midas Touch. Right? I've disagreed with her quite a few times on this very show. So the fact that the president or the vice president of the United States has me agreeing with them kind of irritates me. I don't want to have to agree with people that I frequently disagree with. But when they're right, they're right. Like, stop acting like a shit poster. You are the president or vice president. Act like it. So then what we got next? Here's Tim Pool. The VP calling people dipshits on X is what I voted for. Oh, okay, Tim. We voted so that we could have our leadership just talk trash online. Not like, I don't know, create a better society. That's what you voted for? Of all, I get it. Like, you're excited that people on the right are punching back, and that's cool. I'm fine with that. I don't have an issue. Again, like I said, it's Twitter. But I think this is just kind of telling in my view of like what the focal point is. The focal point is we want to own the libs. And we will allow our vice president to be sloppy about it just as long as he's owning the libs. We're not going to worry about getting the facts right so long as it's leveraging our side. That's what he voted for. Okay, well, I tried to vote for making a better society. And if that means criticizing my team when they do it wrong, I sure as hell will. But that's not what I'm seeing from people on the right. They're allowing sloppiness, and I don't like it. So then Tim was criticized by Mehdi Hassan, and he said they didn't vote for Trump to raise wages or expand healthcare or improve the standard of living in this country. They voted for him so that they could dunk on their enemies online. Don't take my word for it, take theirs. Okay, he's making a good point. Again, somebody that I've criticized quite a bit, making a good point, right? Like, why don't we vote for people that are going to create a better country? You know, make better economic policies, maybe make better social policies, make better international policies. We should vote for those kind of things. As a libertarian, I believe that much of this argument in the social space needs to stay in the social space. Government does not need to enter into it at all. And the right, once upon a time, said that when they were the underdog. But now that they have the upper hand, well, now all of a sudden, all this stuff is cool. What else we got? The White House came out and said, I have been briefed on the deadly shooting at the ICE field office in Dallas, Texas. It has now been revealed that the deranged shooter wrote anti-ICE on his shell casings. I am calling on all Democrats to stop this rhetoric against ICE and America's law enforcement. So again, now this is from POTUS. This is our president. So our president and our vice president, our FBI director, they're all running with this narrative that it's the Democrats. See, look, here's the evidence. Somebody wrote anti-ICE on these bullets. He didn't shoot any ICE agents. He shot detainees and was allegedly firing indiscriminately, but it was totally anti-ICE. It was totally an attack on law enforcement, as opposed to who knows what. You know, here's my thing. If you're willing to kill somebody in cold blood, I think that there's something wrong with you. Something mentally wrong with you. Now, I'm not letting you off the hook. I'm not saying, oh, they have a mental disorder. It's okay. I'm saying, I'm just starting with the premise. You have a mental disorder of some kind. That's my starting point. You're still held accountable, right? That just might change how we hold you accountable. Maybe we throw you in a mental institution, or maybe we throw you in jail, or, you know, whatever, right? I'm not saying we let you go and say, oh, well, he was mentally he wasn't in his right mind. I guess just let him go. Now, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that's my starting point, is that you're mentally deficient in some way. And so then I have to say, I have to be careful about who I pin the blame on. I have to be careful about that. So let's see what else. Here, FBI Director Kash Patel. This morning, just before 7 a.m. local time, an individual fired multiple rounds at a Dallas, Texas ICE facility, killing one, wounding several others before taking his own life. FBI, DHS, ATF are on the ground with Dallas PD and state authorities. While the investigation is ongoing, an initial review of the evidence shows an ideological motive behind this attack. See photo below. That's the photo of the casings. One of the unspent shell casings recovered was engraved with the phrase anti-ICE. More updates will be forthcoming. He then goes on and says these despicable politically motivated attacks against law enforcement are not a one-off. We are only miles from Prairie Land, Texas, where just 2 months ago, an individual ambushed a separate ICE facility targeting their officers. It has to end, and the FBI and our partners will lead these investigative efforts to see to it that those who targeted our law enforcement are pursued and brought to the fullest extent of justice. Thankfully, no law enforcement personnel were injured. Please pray for the injured and deceased. So here's my problem. Again, everybody seems to be kind of just taking those that were the person that was killed and the people that were shot and just kind of, okay, no big deal there. Let's talk about law enforcement. Why, this was an attack on law enforcement. How dare you? I can't believe this. And it's your rhetoric that caused it. Oh, okay. They're literally doing exactly what they claim Jimmy Kimmel was doing. That's what they're doing, right? Like Jimmy Kimmel, like he made that small little comment. Again, he was like, the right is desperately trying to make this about, anybody but them, which was true. They were. You can go on social media and you can go dig back through the history and you can see where that was exactly happening all over social media. And it was happening from the left too. The left was trying to be like, oh, it's probably a right-wing guy. Look at him. He was born and raised in a Christian household. They were doing that. They're just as guilty. Then the right was like, oh, I bet he was trans. Oh, look at him. Oh, look, he's got a trans boyfriend. Yeah, both sides were doing this. And every little bit of information came out was just somehow spun to be evidence that they were right, whichever side was talking. Okay? And so he's doing the same thing here. He's diminishing the death of a human being. Okay, yeah, they were illegal. They were still a human being. We should still not want political assassinations or killings or just regular killing, even if it's not politically motivated. We should not want random people just killing immigrants, even if they're illegal. Like Bill Maher said, we can expect that much. That's not too high of a bar for expectations. So let's see. I think that was it on that. So let me show you a couple pictures here back to back. I want to just point out something. Okay, I just want to make this clear because I'm not being very nice. Okay, so here, remember this picture? MS-13, literally photoshopped, meant to associate the tattoos on the knuckles of Abrego Garcia. So supposedly, the one on his index finger, the marijuana leaf was supposed to be an M. The smiley face was supposed to be the S. The cross is supposed to be a 1. The skull is supposed to be a 3. Most people were like, I can understand the MS and the 1, but the 3 doesn't quite make sense. Don't really see how that's associated with the 3, right? And then the president was full on board by talking about the MS-13 part, not the tattoos, the MS-13 part. You might say, DL, that's not really true. Do you have evidence? Yeah, actually, as a matter of fact, I do. Where's my, here we go. Yeah, this one.
Murderers, criminals in this country, we have to get them out, and we're doing it. By law. And you'll pick out one man, but even the man that you picked out, he said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute
Well, wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Terry,
hold on here. So he's like, they could be interpreted that way, right? And that was the dispute. I want you to listen to what the president said. This is the president. Okay?
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshopped. So let me
That was Photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go.
Okay, that's enough. I just can't take that anymore. Okay, do you see my point here? People on the right are not holding their own people accountable for misinformation. That's misinformation. Then the president repeatedly, very clearly, unambiguously tried to say the MS-13 that was photoshopped on there to illustrate that's what these symbols were supposed to represent. He was insistent that the actual text, the actual numbers, were the tattoos. And then now they're like, well, look, it's anti-ICE because somebody wrote it on these bullets. We can't provide any evidence that it was actually the shooter. Could have been one of our agents. We don't know. We have no other evidence right yet. And it might come out. It might come out. Maybe there's a video hidden on the killer's laptop that shows him writing writing anti-ICE on there. Maybe there's some document somewhere. Maybe in his bedroom, he's got a binder, and he's in there. He's got all these writings about how he's anti-ICE. I'm not saying it's not the case. I'm saying we have a problem with information, and it's both sides. Right now, it happens to be the right because they're the ones in power. I'm holding them accountable, and I'm saying you guys are asking me to believe things with the scantest information possible, and it's weak, and I'm telling them, no, I'm not going to. Furthermore, I'm not going to just broadly blame all Democrats and all left-leaning people for saying the same things that they've been saying for decades for this sudden surge or seeming surge in violence. I think there's something else. What else might that be? Well, the other day on my podcast, I played a clip from Karlin Borsenko, okay? She is a friend of mine. She studies the radical left. And she has been raising the alarm for quite a while. And she's saying, people on the right, you don't understand the left like you think you do. You're busy blaming the Gavin Newsoms. You're busy blaming the Jimmy Kimmels of the world. And there is a different problem for which you are missing and not addressing. Okay? And so she was on Fox News and she was talking about Antifa. And she was saying, these are radical revolutionaries. I told you about Shoe on Head and how a lot of the people that are on the radical left look at her and they're like, yeah, you're not left-leaning. And they've called her a fascist, right? Remember that quote from Blair White? She said, they don't call you a fascist. They don't kill you because you're a fascist. They call you a fascist so they can kill you. And I have also on this program, I have said, there is an element of the left, the very radical left. They want to destroy capitalism. They don't like virtually the entirety of our society the way it's currently structured. And they are doing their best to dismantle it. That's where I think this problem really lies. That's what's not being addressed. Okay? And so I've encouraged you to go and check out Dr. Carlin's work. She's got thousands and thousands of hours that she's put together and researched, and and she goes to the primary sources. She's like, here is their flyer I got at their event. Look what it says. Here is a video of them talking. Listen to what they're saying. And they're saying the things that she's saying, which are not the things that you're hearing from the right now. Right now, they're just trying to make the Gavin Newsoms and the Jimmy Kimmels bend their knee in submission. Fine, whatever, but don't pretend like you're actually solving and addressing the problem of political violence. It's still a problem. That's my concern. And hopefully I've demonstrated that they are leaping to they're leaping to conclusions. The vice president was already talking about law enforcement, and they're busy talking about law enforcement being the targets, when in this particular case, the law enforcement weren't even hit. They couldn't care less, I presume, because these were brown people, that they were killed. I mean, they'll make a mention. It's like the courtesy mention. When you go to someone's house and you have a courtesy bite of their food, it's like a courtesy mention. Oh, yeah, we shouldn't have killed these detainees. That was wrong. So anyway, about law enforcement, right? Because the right loves their law enforcement. That's the problem, and it should kind of scare you when they're not getting their facts correct. I don't care that the vice president calls people dipshit. I don't care about that. I care that he get the facts right, or shut the hell up when he doesn't have the facts, and wait, just like he wants people on the left to do. Like, that's not a big request. Let me show you this last video here. So I'm gonna make this one bigger on the screen here. Let's see here. Yes, here it is. What's this one? What we got there? Oh yeah, I don't need that. Okay, here we go. Boom. So I want to pause this real quick. You may not be able to see it because of the overlay up there, but I'll remove that. So up in the upper left corner, it says Revolutionary Socialism Conference. Okay, that's what they're talking about. And let's see here. Let me open it up a little bit bigger so that I can read it. So it says Revolutionary Socialism Conference, Border Abolition, and the Anti-ICE Rebellion, Riley T. Seattle Revolutionary Socialist, September 7th, 2025, infiltrated live by Carlin Borsenko. Okay, and that's her on the left, and this is one of the participants on the right. I want you to listen to what he said. I want you to see if you can hear him talking about the Jimmy Kimmels, the Gavin Newsoms, or any of the mainstream Democratic views. Just listen.
I just kind of want to share how I'm feeling and maybe bounce a question off of folks, some of our speakers. But when it is getting to a place like LA where they're actively under occupation by the military,
wait, what? Did he say when it comes to LA and what I'm hearing Jimmy Kimmel say? No. Is he, what's going on in LA and what Gavin Newsom said? Also no. He said he claims that he's concerned about military occupation. Now, I'm not sure that I would use those words, because I think occupation is, I don't like that's, I look at that defined completely differently. I objected to the idea of sending in the National Guard to LA. That was on constitutional grounds, not because I was like, oh, you're occupying LA. I don't think of it that way, but he does. So listen to what he asked.
At what point do these community what is it? Community security groups, at what point do they arm up?
Oh. At what point do these community security groups, have you heard that? Has the vice president mentioned anything about, hey, we need to deal with these community security groups? Does he even know what they are? Does he know anything about their ideology? Or is he too busy trying to point the finger at political rivals? Let's listen.
like to arm themselves. And uh I guess like
He's dancing around it. You can see it in his
I don't
face.
know. Like that's just kind of what's going through my head. Um but yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So if you paid attention to like his facial expression and my opinion, I'm drawing a bit of a conclusion here from a little bit. But I think he's dancing around saying what he really wants to say, which is when do these community groups, when do they arm up and take action? I think he was a little hesitant to say it. Okay? And this is the kind of conversation that Dr. Carlin has documented over and over and over repeatedly. And she has shown you documents after documents. Is there a problem with Antifa? Yes. Is there a problem with the radical left? Yes. Are they necessarily the same as the mainstream left? No. They may share, there's overlap in some of the ideology, right? In some of what they might like to see. But you have your moderate left, your mainstream left. They're going to say, we still need to go through the proper process, voting, and so on and so forth. They will denounce violence. They will not engage in violence. Right? Whereas your more radical left, they are willing to. Now, let me give you my conspiracy theory of what I think might happen. This is what kind of scares me. There's two things, actually. Number one, the way the right is behaving. What scares me is that my son is going to have to grow up in a world that's more socially volatile than it is now. Like once upon a time, I wasn't the lone voice saying we shouldn't cancel people that are nobodies. And I don't mean that in a derogatory manner. I'm saying if you're a cashier at, I don't know, Home Depot, and you make an offhanded comment on Facebook, I don't care about that person. You have no power. That person you're not in an authoritative position. You have no power. I don't have an issue I don't care. Freedom of speech, whatever. We don't need to spend our time worrying about the Home Depot cashier. Now, there was a story about supposedly a teacher, I think it was an elementary school teacher or maybe a high school teacher, I can't remember, but allegedly they had showed the actual video of Charlie Kirk being assassinated. I have no problem going after that person. Your job is to teach students how to read, write, do math, whatever it is, whichever particular curriculum that you are responsible for. That's your job. Your job isn't to play the latest news in the classroom. Okay? So, yeah, those kind of things I have a problem with. If you're a teacher that's going to, and we've heard the videos, we've seen them, the students that have recorded their teacher going on some tirade that's unrelated to the curriculum or even the topic, the class that they're in, right? So, yeah, those people, if you want to get them fired, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I'm still not a fan of mobs, okay? What I think is we put out the information, and if there's a teacher acting poorly in, let's say, Jacksonville, then the people of Jacksonville can raise their concern. Somebody in, I don't know, somebody in Texas, they have no business calling up and trying to get a teacher fired here in Jacksonville. That's a Jacksonville issue, okay? I believe in home rule legally and socially. People in Texas, mind your damn business. You don't see me calling up and trying to get people fired out of your state because it's none of my damn business. You guys handle yours, I'll handle mine. The party right now, the people, the side that once upon a time kept talking about national divorce, they can't even do it because they're busy crossing the line and saying, well, I'll deal with somebody else's problem way over there. No, mind your business in your own house, in your own community. Okay? But so that's one concern that I have, is that my son's going to grow up where it has become normalized for people on the internet to look for reasons to get you fired. I don't think that's a society that that's why I'm speaking out, because I don't want him growing up in that kind of society. I don't like what we have, and I think it's going to get worse. And right now, the right, They are making every excuse they can for it. Oh, well, they did it to us. Okay, are you a child? Grow the hell up. Act like the adult that you claimed to be when it was happening to you. Like, I don't even understand that. If you want to be selective and pick specific people and say these specific people are in a, have a specific violation, okay, fine. That's okay. You want to make a more surgical strike, if you will? I'm okay with that. Go after people that matter. Like they've all whined about all the people during COVID. Have you canceled one person that was responsible for lockdowns or any of the lies during COVID? One. No, you haven't. But you sure did get Home Depot, lady. And now you're trying to blame all the Democrats for the violence. You see my point here? They're just wildly swinging. Here's my second concern. This is a bigger one. There's all this talk about civil war. Now, first and foremost, anybody that comes out and suggests that civil war is necessary or a good idea, they're scary, because I think you're a psycho or stupid. I have been, and I've said this before, I have been involved in way more than my fair share of violence. It's unpredictable and it's ugly. I don't want violence. Now, I tell people, I'm not afraid of it. If you break into my house at 2 a.m, you're going to find out just how comfortable I can be with violence. But outside of something like that, I am doing anything and everything that I can to avoid violence. I don't like it. I want to try to avoid it personally, and I want to try to avoid it happening, broadly, like in my community. But that means looking at the facts, evaluating things honestly, and saying what is contributing to it, what is not. In my view, I think you have the right and the left. And then there are radicals. I'm just going to try to simplify this. You have your radicals on each side. And these radicals are going to be they're going to be the first ones that are willing to engage in violence, both the right and the left. Okay? And I think that they have different reasons for this. I think that the left tends to be more, how do I say it? I think their ideology tends to lend toward a more decentralized movement. Whereas the right, the nature of their views and belief kind of implements structure. This is why they are like, oh, we need the police and we need to do this and you need to obey the law is the law, all those good things. I think they're more inclined toward structure, whereas the left is more inclined toward decentralization. That's not to say that there's none of one, there's no shared amount on either side. There's decentralization on the right, there's structure on the left. Okay? I think because of that, you will likely find more violence, or maybe not more, but it will be easier to see violence coming from the left because it's decentralized. Like there's not that order, that structure that says not yet. But on the right, I think it's less decentralized. So I think the mainstream right helps keep the radical right at bay. So here is my concern. Antifa, they do not like our capitalist system. They have said so. Dr. Carlin has documented it over and over and over. I have talked about it. When I did my review of White Fragility, Robin DiAngelo says herself, I quoted her in her book, even in videos, where she says that capitalism and individualism are a problem. She doesn't like them. Okay? That's the root. According to her. I'm not interpreting her for her. I'm telling you what she has said. Okay? I'm not blaming her for political violence. I'm just saying what she believes. Okay? But the radicals, they oppose this. A lot of the more moderate folks do as well. They oppose at least some elements of capitalism, maybe not entirely, not quite like the radicals. So the moderates, the mainstream left, they will go through the processes and implement laws and so on and so forth, policies and whatever to kind of get the world they want. The radical left is happy to burn it all down to get the world that they want. And I think because of the decentralized nature, you will see them come out, not necessarily all at once. It's not going to be like those weirdos that parade around with the white mask on, the Patriot Front. It's not going to be like that. You're going to see revolutionaries acting like revolutionaries. That's why we kind of saw them surrounding the ICE building just recently. Were those Antifa? Perhaps. It's unclear. They were dressing and seeming to behave like Antifa. They were dressed like them, all in black bloc, and they were behaving like them. So therefore, I'm like, okay, so far, seems like you might be them. Could they be agitators from some other side? The right, the CIA, whatever? Perhaps. But until we have evidence of that, I'm going to go with, you look like a duck, you walk like a duck, you're probably a duck. Okay, so I'm going to go with they're probably Antifa. Here's my concern. The right now has the upper hand, but I think they're bullying the left in the same way that the left has bullied them once upon a time. I documented this in my past episode. My big concern is that they're going to overdo it, and they are going to motivate the radical left, the revolutionaries, to engage in more violence. We just heard the guy was asking, hey, when do we take up arms to commit violence? He didn't say commit violence, but I'm pretty confident that we can all assume, reasonably so, that's what he was getting at. And then what did he blame it on? He said the occupation. He saw, like I saw, the National Guard coming into LA as just a violation of power. I didn't see it as an occupation. Occupation means something different to me, but he saw it as an occupation, and he was like, we got to do something about this. When are we taking action? So I think that the right now is misinterpreting a lot of things. They're getting it wrong. They're going after the wrong people. They're implementing policies that are going to agitate the radical left. The radical left will then start engaging in more and more violence. Then what I think will happen is one of two things. The right will impose even harsher policies, which will really invigorate the radical left. Or, this is the worst case scenario, or what will happen is the left will engage in enough violence that the radical right will rise up and all hell will break loose. Then we will have a civil war. Do I want that? Absolutely not. And anybody that does, anybody that thinks it's okay, anybody that thinks it's, that they're going to survive, they'll be on the winning team, anybody that thinks anything other than we have absolutely got to do whatever we can to stop this. If you're anything other than that, you are a psycho. And I want to have nothing to do with you. And now, I don't generally indulge in conspiracy theories. I try not to make speculations of the future. But this is one that actually concerns me. And I think it should concern you as well. What is the answer? The answer is, number one, we need to hold, if you're on the right, you need to hold your own team accountable and say, no, get it correct. Stop with the misinformation. We don't have enough information just yet to say that this was anti-law enforcement. So stop talking about it. Because when you say anti-law enforcement, the natural next move is to say, well, we need to protect law enforcement. We need to implement more policies. We need to do more things that might agitate the left. And I'm not saying we should revolve our society around not agitating the left. All I'm saying is, if we're going to agitate the radical left, the revolutionaries, we should perhaps do it correctly with the right information and not make stuff up. I also think we should hold our own selves accountable. And if we're mad that Jimmy Kimmel downplayed the death of Charlie Kirk, if you're mad about that, you should be mad that J.D. Vance, the sitting vice president, who has more power in this world, the vice president or Jimmy Kimmel, who everybody was like, he's nobody, he's a washed-up talent, his ratings suck, all kind of true to some degree, right? So you're super mad at him, this guy that's not funny, that should have been off the air years ago. You're mad at this guy because he downplayed death, but you're cool with the vice president downplaying death and actually making it about law enforcement when we don't have that evidence yet. You're being hypocrites, and I think you're going to make this worse. People are already wondering. They're like, we're going to have Patriot Act 2? I think we might. Patriot Act 2 will be domestic. I mean, Patriot Act 1 was kind of domestic, but they brought it in under the pretenses of international issues. But this one, the next one that we get, which I would not be surprised after the midterms if people on the right, if like Republicans were to start floating around some new act that could be basically labeled Patriot Act 2 domestic. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I just told you yesterday that the president's already talking about using AI to work with, to in some way resolve our biological and nuclear threats. I don't like where this is going. I think there's a concern, and a lot of it's being driven by misinformation and failure to hold our own side accountable. All right, enough of that rambling. Let's get to some comments here and see what you guys are saying. Surely you guys are, hopefully you're correcting me on all my mistakes in here. Let's see what we got. Joe says big government headline. Marijuana caused self-inflicted holes in head. I mean, it's basically about what they're doing. Let's see. I don't. Alice McGee says hand pink waving. Not sure what that means, but I guess if you're waving at me, hi, I guess. I'm not sure. Let's see what else we got. This is true. That Liberty lady says every group has radicals. It's true. The left has their radicals, right? The right has their radicals. Libertarians have their radicals. And I wouldn't even be surprised if we had radicals who claim to be libertarian and would commit violence. Because everybody that tries to commit violence, or that does or tries, they either are crazy or they try to say they were defending something. Right? Everybody tries to justify it. But yeah, we have our radicals. I am radical just in comparison to the mainstream. I am not radical when it comes to violence. I want nothing to do with it. Let's see. Calling Nazis left and right. I see what you did there. I mean, this is what happens, right? Let's see. Yes. That Liberty lady says, I know some liberals that purposely register Republican and vote in the primary so that they have weak Republicans. I know at least 3 of them in Jacksonville that do this. Yes, and people and there are some Republicans that'll do the same thing. They'll try to get the weaker candidate so that their candidate has the upper hand. Yeah, that totally happens. There's a lot of infiltration, if you will. This is why it's important to get to the facts and make sure that when we make a claim, it is robust, held up strongly by the facts. It's really important. Let's see here. Liberty Dad, spicy. Sometimes I get on my high horse. It is what it is. I don't trust 3-letter agency. I don't trust to not write their own messages on bullets to keep the division. I don't. To me, the weakest evidence so far presented is a picture of bullets that say anti-ICE. Because I don't know who wrote that. Maybe the killer did. Maybe he was anti-ICE. Maybe he was firing indiscriminately because he didn't have training. And maybe he meant to kill ICE agents, but accidentally killed immigrants. And maybe that's why he allegedly shot himself. I don't know. Or maybe there's more to the story. I mean, remember, we are talking about the same FBI that, in my opinion, fumbled the Charlie Kirk investigation that also has been fumbling the Epstein issue. And it surprises me that, I mean, I'm not really that surprised, but it kind of surprises me that the right was so willing to be like, look, these bullets, see, they're totally, the FBI's right now. They're really? You went from skeptical barely 2 weeks ago to all of a sudden full on trust? Where's your skepticism? That's how we hold our government accountable. That's how we prevent our government from screwing us over. It's just mind-boggling. It really is. Joe would like to tell you there is no such thing as illegals. That's fair. I understand. We're not going to have that argument today. How dare you question the mental capacity of our president? Somebody's got to, right? Honestly, I think actually, I will say this. I think President Trump, I think his mental capacity is just, is fine. I don't have any issues with that. I think he is being loose with the facts, and I think he needs a narrative. And I think he needs to stop, and I think the people on the right need to hold him accountable and say, Mr. President, MS-13 on that picture was literally photoshopped to kind of help people understand that the tattoos were alleged to have those meanings. But instead he insisted that what we could clearly see was like, I don't know, Arial font or something. In full black, wasn't even faded like the other tattoos. Anyway, I can't with that. Courtesy bite. This is the first time. Really? You've never heard of courtesy bite? Yes, when you go to someone's house, like if you come to my house and I offer you some food that doesn't look good or smells kind of weird, or you're just not hungry, you know, and I'm like, no, but I insist. A courtesy bite is you're like, okay, I'll have one bite. And then you're like, this is really good. I like it, but I'm kind of full right now. You never heard of that? Come on, guys. Libertarians. So uncultured. Anyway, let's see. Cosmic Entity says Russia today. Not sure what that means. But thank you for joining the chat, Cosmic. Then let's see. That Liberty Lady, last comment here, says Patriot Act 2.0 will absolutely be domestic, and the right will eat that shit up so fast. They will. They will. And I think, again, I'm going to go back to just a brief summary. I think that right now the policies that the right is using are under the wrong pretenses, and they will further inflame or further invigorate the radical left to action. I'm not saying that it's acceptable. I'm saying neither one is acceptable. It's not acceptable to implement policy on bad ideas. We need to have robust evidence before we implement any policy. And then it's definitely not a bad or not an acceptable idea to go and engage in violence. Right? Now, I've said on this show before, and I'll end with this, yes, the Second Amendment was intended to prevent a tyrannical government. However, we also have a system that the citizens can fully engage in. And I think there's still plenty of room to engage in that system. We are nowhere near needing to take up arms against tyranny. I mean, half of y'all don't even vote. Start there. Start with that. And start with voting. Start with seeking out accurate information. Be angry when you find out somebody has misled you, no matter what team they're on. Be mad at them and punish them. Stop watching them if you have to. Say, hey, you're getting it wrong too often. You need to step back, figure out what you're doing wrong, and when you get your head screwed on straight, then I'll come back and I will be part of your audience. Until then, you're not getting my time. There are plenty of things that we can do to right the ship. We do not need to engage in violence. We do not need to implement policies that might lead to engaging in violence. And if the right really cares about what's instigating violence, then they will take a look inward. With that, I'm going to leave you guys. Be sure you hit the show notes. Go to blackgunsmatter.shop. You can get a 10% discount using the code LibertyDad. There's also a referral link if you don't want to remember all of that. By the way, I always accept Rumble Rants. You can click on the green $sign if you're on Rumble. I am not yet prepared for, not Rumble Rants, but what do they call them on YouTube? Super Chats. I am not yet at a position where I can take super chats, but one day I will, as long as you make sure that you hit the like button, make sure that you give me a follow either there or on Rumble. You can also follow me on Twitter where you'll see this, and you can even keep up with me on Facebook. I am trying to make sure that I post more there. So if you're on Facebook, throw me a comment in there, give me some incentive to make sure I come and engage with you guys over on Facebook. With that, you can also find me elsewhere by going to Linktree. That is in the show notes, Linktree/Liberty Dad. So go there, and you can follow me on all my social medias. You can hit me up on Patreon. You can help support the show. You can also help to support the show by dropping me some coins in the Buy Me a Coffee link. Both of those go toward all the cool things that I need to pay for to produce the show, make it a better show, and help you become a more informed person. With that, I'm going to head on out, and I will give you one thing. I will probably not be streaming tomorrow. I meant to mention that in my announcements. I forgot. I will probably not be streaming tomorrow. My son has an early event at his school, and I'm going to be attending with him. My wife and I will both be in attendance. So we will, and that's early. And so I don't think that I will have the opportunity to stream and then make sure that I get out of here on time to be there. So I will probably not stream. If I can do something between now and then, maybe I'll drop a video. We will see, but don't expect it. Otherwise, I will see you guys Monday. With that, have a good one, folks, and I will see you later.